First contact in the desert. The Sahara Desert shimmered like molten glass under the merciless afternoon sun. Dr. Sarah Chen wiped sweat from her brow as she studied the seismograph readings for the 1000th time. Something wasn't adding up. The patterns she'd been tracking for the past 3 months defied every known geological principle. Dr. Chen, you need to see this. Marcus, her research assistant, burst into the climate control monitoring station, his tablet clutched tightly in trembling hands. The readings, they're off the charts. Sarah grabbed the device, her eyes widening as she processed the data. The subsurface movement patterns weren't random at all. They showed clear signs of intelligence, regular intervals, consistent depths, and most impossibly, they were moving against the tectonic flow. "Get me the satellite thermal imaging, now," she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. As the images loaded, her suspicions were confirmed. Whatever was moving beneath the sand was alive, and it was massive. The UN Emergency Council convened within hours of Sarah's report. Representatives from every major nation gathered virtually to discuss the implications of her findings. The evidence was undeniable. Earth was hosting an unknown subterranean species, and they had somehow gone undetected for millennia. The patterns suggest a complex civilization, Sarah explained to the assembled faces on her screen. These aren't just random creatures. They're building something down there. The question is, why now? Why are they suddenly becoming so active? Her answer came 3 days later, when the first terrestrial vermiform ambassador emerged from the sand near their research station. The creature was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. A massive, segmented being nearly 30 meters long, with crystalline sensors along its length that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Its method of communication was equally alien, vibrations transmitted through the ground that their equipment could translate into comprehensible language. The ambassador, who called itself Deep Resonance, revealed that their species, the Terrivermis, had existed alongside humanity for millions of years. They had watched humanity's evolution with curiosity, burrowing deeper as human civilization expanded. But now, they claimed it was time for official contact. "Your species has reached a crucial junction," Deep Resonance transmitted. "Your activities above ground are beginning to affect our deep habitats. We seek cooperation and mutual understanding." For weeks, the dialogue continued. The Terrivermis shared knowledge of Earth's deep geology that revolutionized human understanding of the planet. They helped locate water sources in drought-stricken regions and identified safer areas for geological exploration. Everything seemed to be moving toward a promising partnership between species. Sarah, however, couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The patterns she continued to monitor showed increasing activity in areas Deep Resonance hadn't disclosed. The Terrivermis were building something, expanding their tunnel networks at an unprecedented rate. When she brought her concerns to the UN Council, she was politely dismissed. No one wanted to risk damaging the seemingly peaceful first contact. It was Marcus who finally discovered the truth. While analyzing deep scan data from multiple sites, he noticed something chilling. The Terrivermis weren't just building tunnels. They were systematically weakening Earth's crust in strategic locations. "Look at the pattern," he showed Sarah, his hand shaking as he pulled up the global map. "They're creating fault lines under every major city, every military installation, every critical infrastructure point. This isn't cooperation. It's preparation." Sarah ran the numbers again and again, hoping to find another explanation. But the evidence was irrefutable. The Terrivermis were planning something catastrophic, and humanity's excitement over first contact had blinded them to the signs. When she tried to warn Deep Resonance that they'd discovered the truth, the ambassador's response chilled her to the bone. "Your species had its chance to be stewards of the surface. Now it's time for those who dwell below to take their rightful place. The great emergence begins tomorrow." Sarah rushed to send emergency alerts to every government agency she could reach. As night fell over the Sahara, she could feel subtle vibrations through the soles of her boots. thousands of massive forms moving beneath the earth, positioning themselves for what would become humanity's greatest challenge. The monitors began lighting up across the globe. The terravermists were on the move, and humanity had less than 12 hours to prepare for a war they never saw coming. A war that would be fought not in the skies or on the seas, but in the very ground beneath their feet. As she watched military vessels and aircraft scramble across the world, Sarah couldn't help but wonder, how do you fight an enemy that can swim through solid ground as easily as fish swim through water? The answer, she suspected, would determine whether humanity would survive to see another dawn. The subsurface war. The first attacks came at dawn. Major cities worldwide felt the tremors as the terravermists activated their carefully engineered fault lines, but humanity wasn't as helpless as the worms had anticipated. Sarah Chen's last-minute warning had given military commanders just enough time to evacuate critical installations and mobilize their forces. General Maya Rodriguez stood in the Pentagon's Emergency Command Center, watching as red dots appeared across the global tactical display. Each point represented a terravermis emergence site. The pattern was clear. They were targeting infrastructure, power plants, water treatment facilities, military bases, and communication hubs. They're trying to cripple us systematically, Maya observed, her voice tight with tension. But they've made one critical mistake. They think we'll fight like we always have. Within hours, humanity demonstrated its legendary adaptability. Construction equipment was rapidly converted into anti-worm weapons. Drilling rigs were modified to deploy explosive charges deep underground. Seismic monitoring stations worldwide were repurposed into early warning systems. In Dubai, engineers quickly adapted pile-driving equipment into massive vibration generators, disrupting the terravermis' ability to navigate. In Tokyo, subway tunnels became defensive strongholds, lined with hastily developed sonic weapons that made the Earth itself hostile to the invaders. Sarah Chen found herself pulled from her research station to a heavily fortified facility in Nevada. The military needed her expertise to understand their enemy. She worked alongside a team of geologists, physicists, and weapons developers, racing against time to find the worm's weaknesses. They're crystalline sensors, she explained during an emergency briefing. They're not just for communication. They're vital for navigation. If we can disrupt them, we might be able to trap them underground. The challenge was immense. The terravermis had spent millennia preparing for this war, while humanity had mere hours to adapt. Yet in those crucial first days, human ingenuity began to shine. Mining companies worldwide shared their underground mapping data, creating a real-time tracking system for worm movement. Petroleum engineers repurposed fracking technology to create underground barriers. But the victories came at a terrible cost. Cities crumbled as the worms collapsed subway systems and sewer lines. Millions were displaced as urban areas became battlegrounds. The terravermis seemed endless in number, emerging from the earth to crush buildings before disappearing back into the ground. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Amit Patel, a marine biologist, noticed a pattern in the worm attacks. They're avoiding areas with certain types of bedrock, he reported. Specifically, formations with high quantities of magnetite. This observation led to the development of the first truly effective defense, magnetic field generators that could turn entire sections of ground into no-go zones for the terravermis. But implementing this discovery proved challenging. The power requirements were enormous, and the generators could only protect limited areas. 2 weeks into the war, humanity faced another crisis. The terravermis began targeting agricultural regions, threatening the global food supply. Their strategy was becoming clear. They weren't trying to kill humans directly, but rather make the surface world uninhabitable for human civilization. General Rodriguez coordinated with agricultural experts to develop underground farming facilities, protected by the magnetic field technology. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it would buy them time to develop more effective countermeasures. The war took an unexpected turn when Sarah's team made a disturbing discovery. The terravermis weren't just fighting for territory. They were terraforming the planet. Chemical analysis of soil samples from attacked areas showed increasing levels of exotic minerals. They were literally changing Earth's composition to better suit their biology. This isn't just an invasion, Sarah announced to the Emergency Council. It's an extinction event. They're trying to transform Earth into a world where we can't survive, but they can thrive. The revelation galvanized humanity's efforts. National boundaries became meaningless as countries pooled their resources and expertise. Chinese mining technology was combined with American military hardware. Russian seismologists worked alongside Brazilian engineers. The International Space Station was repurposed into a global monitoring platform, tracking subsurface movement patterns from orbit. As the first month of war drew to a close, humanity had established a precarious stalemate. Major population centers were protected by massive magnetic field generators, powered by hastily constructed nuclear plants. Underground farms were beginning to produce their first crops. Military forces had developed effective tactics for engaging the worms when they surfaced. But the terravermis showed no signs of relenting. If anything, their attacks grew more sophisticated. They began targeting the magnetic field generators themselves, looking for weak points in the human defenses. Each day brought news of another town lost, another defensive line breach. Sarah worked tirelessly in her lab, studying captured terravermis specimens. The key to victory, she believed, lay in understanding their biology. As she examined their crystalline sensors under an electron microscope, she noticed something peculiar: microscopic fractures in the crystal structure, damage that couldn't be explained by their battles. "Something else is affecting them," she muttered, adjusting the microscope's settings. "Something we're not seeing." The answer would come soon enough, but not before the terravermis launched their most devastating attack yet, one that would force humanity to question everything they thought they knew about their ancient underground enemies. Project Tremor. Sarah Chen stared at the data scrolling across her screens, her eyes burning from lack of sleep. The microscopic fractures in the terravermis crystalline sensors had led her team down an unexpected path. These weren't battle damages. They were stress fractures from exposure to something in Earth's natural environment. "Dr. Chen." Dr. Patel burst into the lab, clutching a tablet. "You need to see this. We've been analyzing global weather patterns from before the invasion, and there's a correlation between terravermis activity and atmospheric conditions." The revelation sparked a memory. Sarah pulled up historical seismographic data from the past decade. The pattern was subtle but unmistakable. The worms had been less active during certain seasons, particularly during periods of intense solar activity. "They're not just sensitive to magnetic fields," Sarah breathed, the pieces finally falling into place. "They're affected by electromagnetic radiation. The sun's been fighting them all along." Project Tremor was born from this discovery. Under the guidance of General Rodriguez, a secret facility was established in the Nevada desert. Teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock to develop weapons that could replicate and amplify the natural electromagnetic frequencies that weakened the terravermis. Dr. Elena Kovac, a Serbian physicist, led the development of what they called resonance cannons, massive devices that could project focused electromagnetic pulses deep into the Earth. The technology was experimental, dangerous, and consumed enormous amounts of power, but it was their best hope. "The crystals are key to their entire biology," Elena explained during a project briefing. "They use them for navigation, communication, and possibly even metabolism. If we can disrupt these systems on a large scale, we might be able to drive them back to their deeper habitats." The first field test of a resonance cannon took place in the Arizona desert. The device, mounted on a modified tank platform, looked like something out of science fiction, a massive array of electromagnetic coils surrounding a central core of experimental crystals grown to mimic terravermis biology. When activated, the cannon sent visible waves of energy rippling through the ground. Seismic sensors detected immediate response from nearby terravermis. They recoiled from the affected area. their movements becoming erratic and disorganized. But the test also revealed a critical flaw. The power requirements were massive, and the effect radius was limited. They would need hundreds of these devices to protect even a small city. And worse, the Terravermis quickly began adapting their tactics, attacking in coordinated waves designed to overwhelm the defenses before the cannons could be brought to bear. Sarah worked with quantum computing specialists to analyze the worm's adaptation patterns. The Terravermis weren't just acting on instinct. They were learning, evolving their strategies in real time. This led to a disturbing hypothesis. What they were fighting wasn't just a species, but a collective intelligence. Look at their movement patterns, Sarah pointed out during an emergency council meeting. They're not individual creatures making decisions. They're like neurons in a massive brain, all connected through those crystalline networks. We're not fighting an army. We're fighting a single planet-spanning organism. This understanding changed everything. Traditional military tactics wouldn't work against an enemy that could instantly share information and adapt across its entire consciousness. They needed something new, something unprecedented. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source. A teenage girl in Mumbai who had been experimenting with crystal growing as a hobby. She discovered that certain harmonics could cause crystals to grow in specific patterns. When Sarah's team analyzed her findings, they realized they might be able to use this principle to disrupt the Terravermis' entire communication network. Project Tremor shifted focus. Instead of trying to kill or drive away the worms, they would attempt to isolate them from their collective consciousness. Alina's team modified the resonance cannons to broadcast specific frequencies that would interfere with the crystal networks. The first large-scale test was conducted in the Mojave Desert. 5 resonance cannons were arranged in a pentagonal pattern, creating an overlapping field of disrupting frequencies. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Terravermis in the affected area began behaving erratically, their movements uncoordinated and confused. But the victory was short-lived. The main Terravermis consciousness adapted quickly, developing new communication methods that were more resistant to interference. They launched a massive counterattack against the testing facility, nearly overwhelming the defenses. They're scared, Sarah realized as she analyzed the attack patterns. For the first time, we've actually threatened them. They're not just fighting for territory anymore. They're fighting for survival. The war entered a new phase. Project Tremor's discoveries had given humanity its first real advantage. But implementing the technology on a global scale would require resources they didn't have. And time was running out. The Terravermis terraforming efforts were accelerating, making more of Earth's surface uninhabitable for humans with each passing day. As Sarah watched the sunset from her lab window, she noticed something strange in the sky. An unusual aurora, visible despite their relatively low latitude. She quickly checked the solar activity monitors and found something that made her heart race. A massive solar storm was approaching Earth, the largest recorded in human history. Maybe, she thought, her mind racing with possibilities, we don't need to build our own weapon. Maybe we just need to help nature provide one. The idea that formed in her mind was audacious, possibly suicidal, but it might be humanity's last chance. As she rushed to present her plan to General Rodriguez, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The Terravermis had launched their largest offensive yet, and this time, they were targeting Project Tremor itself. The human element. The Terravermis attack on Project Tremor's facility was devastating. 3 of the 5 resonance cannons were destroyed in the first wave, their electromagnetic barriers overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Sarah Chen and her team worked frantically to salvage crucial research data as the ground beneath them literally came apart. Get everything to the backup servers. She shouted over the facility's groaning structure. Alina, we need those solar storm calculations now. Dr. Alina Kovic's fingers flew over her keyboard, running simulations at breakneck speed. The approaching solar storm wasn't just large, it was potentially civilization-ending. But Sarah had seen something everyone else had missed, an opportunity to turn the Terravermis' greatest advantage into their downfall. "The storm will hit in approximately 36 hours, Elena reported, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "If your calculations are correct, the electromagnetic pulse will be strong enough to disrupt their entire crystalline network simultaneously. But it'll also fry every unshielded electronic device on Earth," General Rodriguez interjected, studying the projections. "We'd be going back to the Stone Age." Sarah nodded grimly. "Unless we can find a way to shield ourselves while ensuring the terravermists take the full force of it." That's when Dr. Amit Patel made a crucial connection. "The magnetic field generators we've been using for defense. What if we reverse them? Instead of creating barriers to keep the worms out, we could use them to channel the storm's energy directly into their tunnel networks." The idea was brilliant but dangerous. They would need to reconfigure every major magnetic field generator on Earth, creating a vast network of electromagnetic conductors. It would require unprecedented global cooperation and split-second timing. General Rodriguez made the call. Within hours, the plan was being transmitted to every surviving military and scientific installation worldwide. They called it Operation Lightning Rod. The next day and a half was a blur of activity. While military forces fought desperately to hold back the terravermis offensive, engineering teams worldwide worked to modify their defensive systems. Civilian electronics were shut down and shielded wherever possible. The International Space Station, now converted into humanity's primary early warning system, tracked both the approaching solar storm and terravermis movements. Sarah's team made a critical discovery during the preparations. The terravermis weren't just sensitive to electromagnetic energy. They were addicted to it. Their entire biology had evolved to harvest and process Earth's natural electromagnetic field. The solar storm wouldn't just disrupt their communication. It would overload their entire nervous system. They must have evolved during a period when Earth's magnetic field was much weaker, Sarah explained during the final briefing. That's why they stayed deep underground for so long. Our technological development has been like a drug to them, drawing them closer to the surface. Now we're going to give them an overdose. As the storm approached, humanity held its breath. The terravermis, sensing the approaching electromagnetic disturbance, launched an all-out assault on major population centers. They seemed to realize something was coming, but their addiction to electromagnetic energy made retreat impossible. Elena worked with teams globally to synchronize the magnetic field generator network. The timing had to be perfect. Too early, and the terravermis would adapt. Too late, and human civilization would bear the brunt of the solar storm. "We've got one shot at this," she announced, her voice carried to command centers worldwide. "When I give the signal, all generators need to switch to attraction mode simultaneously." The storm hit Earth's magnetosphere like a hammer striking an anvil. Auroras blazed across the sky, visible even at the equator. In orbit, the space station's crew watched in awe as waves of charged particles swept toward Earth. Now, Elena's command echoed across global communications channels. Thousands of magnetic field generators reversed polarity simultaneously, creating a vast network of electromagnetic conductors that channeled the storm's energy directly into the terravermis tunnel systems. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for both sides. The electromagnetic pulse knocked out power grids and communications across the globe, despite their preparations. But for the terravermis, it was apocalyptic. Their crystalline networks, already stressed by human attacks, shattered under the onslaught of concentrated electromagnetic energy. The entire terravermis consciousness screamed in agony. A vibration felt through the soles of every human's feet. Their coordinated attacks collapsed into chaos as the hive mind fractured. Some worms went berserk, attacking blindly. Others retreated deep into the earth, trying desperately to escape the electromagnetic storm raging through their tunnel networks. But Sarah's team had prepared for this phase too. As the worms scattered, modified resonance cannons mounted on surviving vehicles pursued them, broadcasting frequencies that herded the creatures deeper and deeper underground. The technology that had failed to defeat them alone became devastatingly effective against their now disorganized forces. Hours passed as humanity weathered both the solar storm and the death throes of the Terravermis collective. When the electromagnetic disturbance finally passed, the world was changed. Much of humanity's infrastructure lay in ruins, but they had achieved something unprecedented: victory against an enemy that had planned their extinction for millennia. As emergency services began the monumental task of restoration, Sarah stood in the remains of her lab, examining readings from deep Earth sensors. The Terravermis weren't extinct. Some had survived by retreating to the planet's deepest layers. But their collective consciousness was shattered, their ability to coordinate lost, perhaps forever. "We didn't just win a war today," she told her exhausted team. "We proved something fundamental about humanity. It's not our technology that makes us strong. It's our ability to understand it, to adapt it, and most importantly, to know when to let it go." A new challenge now faced humanity: rebuilding their civilization while ensuring the Terravermis could never again threaten the surface world. But as Sarah watched the sun rise over the scared desert landscape, she felt a profound sense of hope. They had faced extinction and survived, not through brute force, but through intelligence, cooperation, and the uniquely human ability to turn nature itself into an ally. Earth's victory. 6 months after Operation Lightning Rod, humanity was rising from the ashes of what historians now called the Subterranean War. Cities were being rebuilt, but differently this time, with deep sensing arrays and electromagnetic defense systems integrated into their foundations. The war had changed humanity's relationship with the ground beneath their feet forever. Sarah Chen stood at the podium of the newly reconstructed United Nations headquarters in Geneva, presenting her findings to representatives from every surviving nation. The room was packed with leaders eager to understand both their victory and their future challenges. "The Terravermis threat is contained, but not eliminated," she explained, gesturing to the holographic display showing Earth's deep scan data. "The surviving specimens have retreated to depths beyond our current reach, approximately 30 kilometers below the surface. However, their collective consciousness appears permanently fragmented." The victory had come at a staggering cost. Millions had died in the initial attacks and subsequent battles. Major cities had been reduced to rubble. The electromagnetic pulse from Operation Lightning Rod had set global technology back decades in many regions. Yet amid the devastation, something remarkable had emerged: a united human species, forced to cooperate in ways previously thought impossible. Dr. Elena Kovic took the stage next, presenting the technological innovations born from necessity during the war. The resonance cannons had led to breakthroughs in electromagnetic field manipulation, promising new forms of clean energy. The crystal communication technology, reversed engineered from the Terravermis, had revolutionized telecommunications. "We're not just rebuilding what was lost," Elena declared. "We're creating something entirely new. A civilization designed to coexist with and defend against subsurface threats." The new world took shape rapidly. Underground early warning systems spread across continents like a vast nervous system. The International Space Station, expanded and reinforced, maintained constant surveillance for both solar activity and deep Earth movement. Former enemies found themselves working together, sharing resources and technology in the face of a threat that made their old conflicts seem petty. But perhaps the most profound changes were philosophical. Humanity had faced an ancient species that had nearly succeeded in replacing them, and the experience had sparked a revolution in how humans viewed their place in the universe. "We're not alone on this planet," Sarah reminded the assembly. "We never were. The Terravermis were just the first non-human civilization we encountered. There could be others, waiting in the deep oceans or high atmosphere. We need to be ready, not just with weapons, but with understanding." Research teams worldwide began studying the recovered Terravermis specimens and technology. The crystalline communication systems, once understood, proved to be far more sophisticated than initially believed. They operated on principles that challenged human understanding of physics itself. Dr. Amit Patel led a team developing what he called Earth Sense technology, devices that could detect and interpret the subtle vibrations that the terravermis had used for communication. The applications went far beyond defense, offering new ways to predict earthquakes, locate resources, and understand Earth's deep structures. 1 year after the war, humanity achieved another milestone: the modified Deep Earth probe, using hybrid human terravermis technology, reached the deepest point ever explored beneath the surface. The data it sent back was fascinating. The surviving terravermis had indeed begun rebuilding, but differently. Their new communities were smaller, disconnected, more focused on survival than conquest. "They're evolving," Sarah observed, studying the probe's data. "Just like us. The war changed them as much as it changed us." The Global Defense Network detected occasional attempts by isolated terravermis groups to approach the surface, but the creatures retreated quickly when confronted with electromagnetic barriers. It seemed they had learned to fear humanity as much as humanity had learned to fear them. As cities rose again, they incorporated elements of both defense and monitoring. The new architecture celebrated humanity's resilience while acknowledging their vulnerability. Museums dedicated to the war showed younger generations what had been lost and gained. Schools taught children about the importance of unity in the face of extinction-level threats. 2 years after the war, Sarah stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon, now home to one of the largest deep Earth monitoring stations in North America. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, while sensitive instruments hummed quietly, keeping watch over the world below. General Rodriguez, now Secretary of Global Defense, joined her at the overlook. "Sometimes I wonder if we could have found a way to coexist with them peacefully," she mused. Sarah shook her head. "They saw us as an infestation on their world. Cooperation was never possible, not with their collective consciousness driving them toward dominance. But now, with that consciousness shattered, who knows? Maybe in a few centuries, when both our species have evolved further." The general nodded, understanding the implications. Humanity had won this war, but the victory had taught them an important lesson. They weren't the only intelligent life on Earth, and probably not in the universe. The question wasn't whether they would face another challenge to their existence, but when. "We'll be ready next time," Rodriguez said firmly. "Not just with weapons and shields, but with knowledge and unity." The terravermis tried to destroy us, but they only succeeded in making us stronger. Sarah smiled, feeling the subtle vibrations through her feet, the normal, natural movement of their living planet. The war had given humanity something it had never had before: a genuine appreciation for their place in the cosmic order. They were not masters of Earth, but rather one of many species fighting for survival and evolution. As night fell over the canyon, the stars emerged in a dazzling display. Somewhere up there, Sarah knew, other civilizations might be watching, waiting, perhaps planning their own encounters with humanity. But she wasn't afraid anymore. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. The terravermis had intended to replace humanity as Earth's dominant species. Instead, they had forged humanity into something new, a species ready to face whatever challenges the universe might throw at them next. It wasn't just a victory over an ancient enemy. It was a victory over their own limitations, their divisions, their fear of the unknown. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest or dominance, but through resilience, adaptation, and the uniquely human ability to turn their greatest challenges into their greatest achievements.